Sweetie, are you waiting for someone?
Que Lily sut dans l'iasqued.
No, Yanran replied absent-mindedly.
Then why do you keeping looking at the door? Asked Chu Lily, puzzled. Ji Yanran suddenly blushed and withdrew her gaze in panic. She bowed her head to eat and replied, I did not. Sweetie, you are a bit weird today. Chu Lily looked her up and down. The genius is here, someone whispered. Chu Lily quickly looked to the door and saw Han Sen and Zhang Yang entering the cafeteria. Chu Lily suddenly looked at Ji Yanran with disbelief. Sweetie, you were waiting for him, right? How did you know he would come here? Tell me. Stop it. I was not waiting for him, and how would I know he'd be here? Ji Yanran covered her own panic by taking a sip of her juice. When Chu Lily had thought of more to ask, Han Sen and Zhang Yang had carried their trays to the girls' table and asked with a smile, Sisters, can we sit here? Of course. Chu Lily looked at Ji Yanran, who kept drinking her juice, and looked back at Han Senator. She had understood something. The genius is sitting with Ji Yanran. Is there something going on between them? Shut up. How long has he been here? I have never seen them walking together either. But it seems that their relationship is unusual. Ji Yanran now regretted coming to the cafeteria. It was a rushed decision, and she was less mad at Han Sen since he had come over. However, the concerning eyes on her was almost burning a hole in her face. All she could do was drinking her juice. Hi Han Sen. My name is Chu Lily, Warship Command Major. This is my roommate Ji Yanran. You should have heard of her. Chu Lily smiled and reached out a hand. Hello, I am in the archery department, and I am Ji Yanran's boyfriend.
Han Sen chok her hand friendly.
Ji Yanran suddenly choked on her juice, and everyone who heard that was appalled. Han Sen said that naturally, while it was quite an arrogant remark in the ears of others. No one had dared to claim to be Ji's boyfriend. The genius is just different. *T. Is he for real? They are really together? This is too fast. He has only been here for a few months. There goes our campus belle. But he would be the only one who deserves her anyway. Gossip filled the cafeteria as people whispered and sent pictures to the campus community. The genius's girlfriend exposed. You would not believe who she is. Campus belle taken. A variety of different titles and videos filled the community in a sudden. At this time, Chu Lily was looking at Han Sen, stunned. Although she thought there was something going on, she did not expect him to admit being her boyfriend. Based on her understanding of Ji Yanran, her roommate would never let this happen. Chu Lily even forgot to release Han Sen's hand and stammered, You are her boyfriend? What is this nonsense? You think someone like you can be our president's boyfriend? I will kick your ass right now if you keep talking this way, shouted Monkey among a group of men who had come over to this table. Li Yufeng was also among them, looking gloomy. Why can't I? Han Sen asked evenly, looking at the emotional crowd. Our president has said before, whoever wants to be her boyfriend has to beat her at Hand of God. Can you? Monkey asked coldly. That is easy, Han Sen said casually. Staring at Han Sen, Li Yufeng suddenly said, Now you have to beat me before you could pursue Yanran. Li Yufeng knew that with Han Sen's warframe skills, this guy must have fast hands, and gave Han Sen a bigger challenge. Now, isn't that even easier?
Han Sen låg head.
What did you say? Monkey and the rest were furious. Li Yufeng stopped them and threw a fiery gaze at Han Sr. Then we will have one match. If you lose, do not let me see you around her again. Is that necessary? You have lost already.
Han Sen smiled.
Damn, say it if you do not dare to game, ridiculed Monkey, thinking that Han Sen got cold feet. His friends were all helping him ridicule Han Sen, and Li Yufeng looked at Han Sen with disdain. If you dare not fight me, then stay away from her. At this time, Chu Lily was suddenly enlightened and stood up. With both of her hands on the table and her eyes fixed on Han Sen, she almost shouted, Are you Ji Yanran's boyfriend? The onlookers were shocked by Chu Lily. They all felt that Chu Lily was making a big deal out of nothing, since Han Sen just said he was. But Chu Lily quickly changed her way of asking, Are you my girlfriend is Jianran? All of a sudden, everyone opened their mouths wide. They did not expect that this was the guy who had beaten Li Yufeng by 20 points on the battle net. Now that Han Sen had personally admitted that he was Ji Yinran's boyfriend, was it not the most plausible theory that he was behind that ID? That's my BattleNet ID, Han Sen replied casually. Li Yufeng, Monkey, and the rest all went pale. They could not believe this. If Han Sen was really my girlfriend as Ji Yinran, then there was no need for another match indeed. No wonder the genius said he had one already. So he is my girlfriend, Yinran. The genius is out of this world. I thought he was good at warframes, but he is better at black and white boxing. Now he is even better at Hand of God and has beaten Li Yufeng by 20 points. Great God, he is one of a kind. Han Sen was Ji Yinran's boyfriend, and my girlfriend as Ji Yinran was really Ji Yinran's boyfriend. This news made many feel incredible and relieved at the same time. After all, unless it was Ji Yinran's boyfriend, who would be so shameless to use that ID? But the news was still earth-shaking in Blackhawk, whose campus belle finally had a boyfriend, Han Sen. Ji Yinran was the campus belle, but Han Sen was even more famous, the genius who had the Starry Cup in his pocket, beat the Chosen in black and white boxing, and killed it at Hand of God. Many people only felt a bit surprised when hearing the news, and soon thought that it was rather natural. Even the photos of Han Sen and Ji Yinran together looked sweet and natural. When the two stood together, people noticed that although Han Sen was not as good-looking, he had a man's determination. What was more incredible was his skin was even better than his girlfriend's, making many girls jealous. Any picture with Ji Yinran and Han Sen in it was beautiful. They looked perfect together like a sword belonged to its knight. If they were with anyone else, it would not be the same. Wait, have we met recently? The more she looked at Han Sen, the more familiar Chu Lily felt. Suddenly, Chu Lily thought of something incredible and her eyeballs almost fell out. She pointed at Han Sr. You, dormitory. Before Chu could finish that sentence, Ji Yinran blushed and dragged her back to the dorm. Sweetie, I did not see that you have such potentials. Tell me, when did you have this guy under your skirt? I can't believe you pretended not knowing him and said you had no idea who your boyfriend was, said Chu Lily with a faint smile, glancing at Ji Yinran who had her face covered up in a blanket. Ji Yinran said with a look of pretended annoyance, It's not like that. I really did not know it was him. Ah, if you did not know it was him, why did you make out with him in public? Chu Lily twitched her mouth and showed no confidence in her statement. Ji Yinran sat on her bed and took the blanket off her face. Well, I will confess now. I really did not know before. Ji Yinran explained the story from the moment when she met Han Sen on the spaceship. Sweetie, you had your eyes on him then, right? Chu Lily asked after listening, squinting. What? I'm nothing like you. Ji Yinran was speechless. At this time, Ji's comlink rang and it was Han Sen. Aha, it must be Han Senator so romantic, a phone call right after you parted. Chu Lily said, grinning. Ji Yinran was so shy that she had an urge to hang up, but eventually ran to the washroom and picked up. After a while, Ji Yinran came out and said, he said that we barely ate anything before we left, and wanted to invite us eat something in a private room at the cafeteria. You want to go? Who is he? Chu Lily gave an ambiguous smile. Are you going or not? Ji Yinran pouted prettily in embarrassment. Of course, I will ask him to spare me one of his friends. Chu Lily twirled away to get dressed. When Ji Yinran and Chu Lily entered the private room, they saw Han Sen and Zhang Yang sitting there chatting. Seeing Ji Yinran and Chu Lily come in, Han Sen quickly pulled a chair next to him and asked Ji Yinran to sit there. Zhang Yang did the same for Chu Lily. Han Sen, you hid the secret well and had Yinran to yourself so quietly, commented Chu Lily with a faint smile. I have not had the opportunity yet, replied Han Sen with a smile. Ji Yin turned red and ground her foot into Han Sen's, making him yelp. Chu laughed herself senseless and said, Han Sen, let me reintroduce myself. My name is Chu Lily, Yinran's best friend. Han Sen, Yinran's only boyfriend. And this is my classmate and roommate Zhang Yang. Han Sen touched Zhang Yang and said, You can introduce yourself? Zhang Yang puffed out his chest and said, Zhang Yang, student at archery department, Han Sen's roommate, and the greatest commander the Alliance will ever see. Well, there is an ambition. I admire that. To us. Chu Lily raised her glass of wine. The four were all cheerful and young. so it took no time for them to get acquainted. Han Sen, if you and Yinran are a couple, how could you join the Heavy Warframe Society instead of Hand of God Society?
Que Lily Asked.
Hand of God is not challenging enough, and I was not good at Warframes, so I wanted to learn. Han Sen told the truth. I would only take this answer from you. Chu Lily heard Han Sen's answer and suddenly laughed. When Han Sen was about to say something, his comlink rang. Han Sen checked the number and excused himself to answer the call. So mysterious. Is it a girl? After Han Sen finished, Chu Lily asked directly. Jianran also wanted to ask, but was too shy to do that. Hearing Chu Lily's question, she stared at Han Sen. No, a friend is looking for me, and I'll go to meet him later, Han Sen said. Such a fussy friend. Just ask him to join us, Chu Lily said. Han Sen paused, and Chu Lily continued, Han Sen, are you afraid we are going to see your friend?
Han Sen suddenly låghed.
Sister, if you do not mind, we can ask him to come over. Do it. I can handle 10 friends of yours. Chu Lily was cheerful and carefree. Then I will ask him. Han Sen called his friend and said a few words. Then he smiled and said, he is close and will be here in a minute. In a minute, they heard a knock on the door. Han Sen opened the door and a guy wearing a hat and sunglasses walked in. Friend, this is a military school. You think you can scare anyone by dressing like this?
Que Lily commented bitterly.
Lily, Ji Yinran pulled her sleeve. The man laughed. That is true. I wear these because I was afraid of trouble. He took off the hat and sunglasses, revealing a handsome face. Several people inside the room were suddenly dumbfounded, especially the Chu Lily and Zhang Yang.
Tang Yen Li.
Chu Lily stuttered, not expecting her idol would appear here, and she seemed to have been rather mean to him. I am Han Sen's friend Tang Zhenliu. I hope I did not disturb you, Tang said with a smile. No, of course not. Chu Lily, who was nagging all the time, suddenly turned into a shy girl. Han Sen felt amused and thought, there is always one thing to conquer another. A girl like Chu turned into a kitty cat when seeing Tang Zhenliu. Nice. Now she probably won't try to give me a hard time. Han Sen introduced everyone, basically just his friends, to Tang Zhenliu, since everyone knew who Tang was. Zhang Yang shook Tang's hand very excitedly. He had always admired Tang's fierce broadsword skills and saw Tang as his idol and goal, so he was thrilled to meet Tang in person. Tang Zhenliu, I will beat you one day, said Zhang Yang, holding Tang's hand. Tang froze, and Han Sen nearly died laughing. He explained, Tang, these words from Zhang Yang are absolutely without any malice. Among the people whom this guy will beat are the Shura King, Alliance President, and lots of senators. Tang Zhenliu suddenly came to understand it. He smiled and said, Zhang Yang, it would be my honor to be beaten by you. The girls both grinned. Tang Zhenliu, if you were in a black and white boxing match with Han Sen, will you win?
Que Lily asked unexpectedly.
60-40. Tang gave a reluctant laugh and blinked at Han Sen. Sen is so strong that he stands a 40% chance of beating you? Zhang asked, surprised. Ahem, I mean I only stand a 40% chance of winning, Tang said helplessly. The rest looked at Han Sen as if he was a stranger. Someone like Tang Zhenliu said he only stood a 40% chance of winning when playing against Han's senator. This was so hard for them to imagine. Tang ranked second in the chosen. After Tang Zhenliu left, Han Sen resumed his routine and spent most of his time in the Heavy Warframe Society. There remained to be many problems in his operation techniques. He could easily beat anyone on campus, but in the finals of Starry Cup, he might not be able to get the championship. The championship of the finals was very rewarding, and Han Sen was quite interested. Soon bad news came from the sponsor of Starry Cup. Han Sen and his Silver Killer were disqualified, on the grounds that Han Sen had used an ineligible warframe. Blackhawk protested this decision and tried to approach the Starry Group, but the group insisted that Han Sen and Silver Killer be disqualified. The reason for Starry Group's adoption of this strong attitude was that their young master Son of Heaven had ordered them to kick Han Sen out. It did not matter who had objection. The decision had been made. Han Sen's disqualification aroused a lot of controversy in the Military Academy League. Some cheered the decision, and some said they could not accept it. The biggest controversy was whether or not the Silver Killer should be considered ineligible. Starry Cup had not specified the details of the participating warframes, so what Starry Group called ineligible was just their version. I know that there must be something wrong with the warframe. As a freshman, there is no other explanation for his victory. But how did his warframe violate the rules? Starry Group did not give a reasonable explanation, so it is difficult to convince the public. It violated some rules for sure. I think that Han Sen is the son of some general and thus uses a military warframe. Or else why couldn't we find it on the market? It is a military warframe for sure, which cannot be used in the alliance. Han Sen has violated the law and should be arrested and interrogated. I thought he was somebody, but he simply cheated with a warframe. If you give me a good military warframe now, I can definitely become the champion of a school division in the contest. This is extremely unfair to the other players. I think it is not enough to cancel his qualification. They should cancel his division championship as well. Indeed. Why was such a person made a champion? There were a lot of posts criticizing Han Sen all of a sudden on the Skynet. Needless to say, Son of Heaven was behind that. Many students who did not know the truth were also confused by these voices. After all, it must be true what all men say. But at this time, Han Sen chose to ignore those. Digong had agreed to Han Sen's terms and signed a contract with him. There were many activities that he needed to attend. One of the most important activities was that Digong would host a Digong Warframe match on the 10th of the next month, and Han Sen had to participate in it. And the period of time before the match would see overwhelming advertising campaigns of the new Warframe, SKTS. On the 10th of the next month, the Digong Warframe match would start and SKTS would be launched, while Starry Cup finals would also begin. As the spokesperson of Digong, Han Sen needed to appear in its commercials and campaigns, which he was glad to oblige. His Silver Killer had already been sent back to the lab to have a weapon system installed. But even if he still had it, Han Sen could not operate Silver Killer because the only warframe he should be driving for the time being was SKTS. SKTS had almost the same appearance as Silver Killer, but its performance level was much lower. As a prototype, Silver Killer was even better than ordinary military warframes, let alone the civil ones. But the outsiders could not distinguish between Silver Killer and SKTS at all. From their looks, they were the same warframe. All of Digang's campaigns had been about the concept of super biological warframe, but none had shown the appearance of this new warframe. At this time, Digong was seizing the time to shoot the commercials for SKTS for publicity. Digong had informed Blackhawk to allow Han Sen to take a leave from school when there was no holidays so that he could go to a base of Digong for the shooting. Because it was a trade secret, Han Sen could not tell anyone anything before the commercials were aired. Han Sen just told Ji Yanran that he had some errands to run before he was taken by the staff of Digong. In a corner office at the base of Digong, an 18-year-old girl in white uniform was arguing in front of Liu Changming. General Manager Liu, I believe that I have the ability and confidence to star the commercial. Why would you ask me to be just a pretty face and let an ordinary military school student to star the commercial? Please give me an explanation. Yu Qinshuan was sizzling with anger. Although obedience was the first duty of a soldier, Yu Qinshuan, who was from a service family, could not accept the fact that she had to be a stooge to an ordinary student. As a member of the Special Warframe Force, as well as the fourth and the only female among the chosen this year, Yu Qinshuan was a bigger star than Tang Jinliu and Lin Feng. As early as a year ago, Yu was designated as the official spokesperson of Digong and had endorsed most of the company's new products. The sales numbers of those products had been great. That was why it was difficult for her to accept the order to act in a supporting role to an ordinary military school student who was from Blackhawk. Maybe for an average person, Blackhawk was regarded as a prestigious school, but for her who was in Alliance Central Military Academy, Blackhawk was nothing. Qinshuan, you are not in a supporting role. You are the heroine, and he is the hero, and the commercial will be starred by both of you, Liu Changming said with a smile. Besides, now all young people like to see a beauty in the commercials. You will definitely attract more attention than he ever will. General Manager Liu, do you think I'm a 3-year-old? This is a Warframe commercial. Have you ever seen a heroine who does not drive the Warframe? Asked Yu Qinshuan, biting her lip. She had seen the script. Although she was the heroine, there was no scene where she would drive SKTS. The point of her being there was her face, which was not something she was used to, and she was indeed playing a supporting role. After all, whoever drove a warframe could be called a star in the commercial. Qianxuan, you are not only a soldier, but also a star. Trust your performing skills, and I believe you can make yourself the protagonist of You Too. Lu Changming narrowed his eyes and said.
But,
Yu Qianxuan wanted to say anything, but was interrupted by Lu. No, but. This is an order. If you have any opinion, you can go talk to your superior. Lu Changming darkened his face. You bit her lip and had to step out of Lu's office. A soldier before a star, she must obey orders despite her own unwillingness. As a member of the Special Warframe Force, she could not even touch the warframe in a warframe commercial, which was definitely a shame for her. I want to see who it is that took this role from me. Yu Qianxuan ground her fine teeth. If it was for any other commercial, Yu Qianxuan would not mind as much, but she was really into SKTS. In her eyes, SKTS was leading the revolution in the warframe industry. Hence, it was her sincere hope to star the commercial for this warframe. Han Sen was received by Lu Changming himself when he came to the base. Han Sen did not dare to trifle with Lu, who was the general manager of Digong and a major general. Fortunately, Lu Changming had a great impression of Han Sen, and their meeting was also quite pleasant. Lu Changming personally arranged for Han Sen's residence and welcome dinner, where almost everyone involved in the commercial showed up. Lu introduced the director, producer, and everyone else to Han Senator. The only one missing was the heroine. But Han Sen did not know there would be a heroine at all and simply enjoyed his meal. The next day, someone took him to the Warframe training ground to get familiar with SKTS. Looking at its appearance, Han Sen could hardly distinguish between SKTS and Silver Killer. The only difference was that when folded up, SKTS was bigger than Silver Killer. Silver Killer was the size of a portable briefcase, while SKTS was like a luggage case. An array of SKTS were placed on the stage, looking identical. Han Sen picked one and turned it on. Although it had the same appearance, Han Sen felt the difference after he started to drive. In SKTS, the comfort of driver was improved, whereas the performance was significantly reduced. But even SKTS was much better than the King series of Starry Group in both performance and smoothness. Used to using a high-performance warframe, Han Sen was driving SKTS in his usual style, which led to small deviations in the warframe's movements. Some acts that Han Sen assumed that SKTS would perform easily actually failed due to its lack of horsepower. Having been watching him secretly in an SKTS on the side, Yu Qianxuan felt even worse for herself being a stooge to this guy. Even if I could not get the leading role back, I will show you what it is like to be a true warframe operator, thought Yu. Turning her warframe on, she commanded it to draw a laser sword and rush toward Han Sen. When practicing, Han Sen suddenly saw an object approaching him at a high speed from the radar. He looked up and saw another SKTS coming toward him with a sword in its hand. Assuming that it was arranged to get him familiar with the warframe, Han Sen was not surprised. Controlling his warframe to hold a sword in hand, he was ready for the fight. But Han Sen misunderstood one thing. He thought there was an operator in each SKTS in the array, and was prepared to be thrown into a group fight. Hence, he thought he should get rid of the first warframe coming at him as fast as possible, so that it would be easier for him to deal with the rest. Lu Changming and the director of the commercial Su Wanchong were monitoring Han Sen's practice through a monitor. Suddenly seeing a SKTS moving, they both paused. And then Lu Changming suddenly knew what was happening, and his face became grave. It must be Yu Qianxuan. This is such nonsense. Ready to ask someone to stop her, Lu Changming rose up but was stopped by Su Wanchong, who smiled and said, Lu, it is okay. You said Han Sen is a warframe genius, so wouldn't it be brilliant if he could just beat her so that she would play her role willingly? Lu Changming said a wry smile. Su, you do not know Yu's background. She comes from a warframe family where generations of people have been dedicated to warframe operation. She was sent to the Special Warframe Force when she turned 16 and have been practicing with the best men ever since. Few at her age could be better than her at warframe. Having taken a deep breath, Lu Changming continued, Han Sen is very good, but I cannot guarantee that he will be able to beat her. Moreover, she has been practicing on SKTS for days, while he is just getting started. The performance of SKTS is much worse than Silver Killer, so he must be still getting used to it. Ugh. Let's stop her immediately then, Su Wenchang quickly said. It's too late. Let's hope for the best, Lu Changming said with a wry smile. Even if he sent someone right now, it would be too late for that person to stop you. Yu Qianxuan's style of operation was like her character, taking the lead whenever possible. She would fight without fear even when she was against someone much stronger than herself. Yu Qianxuan drove SKTS at full speed toward Han Senator with the power generated from the high speed. The SKTS wielded the sword from above fiercely. Seeing Han Sen raising his sword to block her strike, she felt more disdained. With the same warframe, hers had a higher speed than his, so it was predictable that his warframe would suffer more. Once his warframe fell to the ground, he would have no chance to adjust before she beat him. Yu Qianxuan's strike was so fierce that she seemed to have put all her anger in it. The swords were merely 10 inches apart and were about to collide. Considering the size of SKTS, the distance was alarming. At this time, Yu suddenly saw Han Sen's sword had disappeared. Yu Qianxuan was shocked. But at this point, there was nothing she could do other than watching the other SKTS turning swiftly and briskly appearing behind her.
Bang!
In the blink of an eye, Han Sen controlled his SKTS to kick the other warframe on the back. Accompanied by its inertia of going forward, Yu's warframe was brought to its knees. With the intense impact, Yu Qianxuan was dumbfounded, not just because of the physical pain, but also because she could not believe she would lose like this to someone that she despised. For a moment, she did not move. She knew her opponent could have used his sword instead of foot, which would ruin her and her SKTS. Lu Changming and Su Wenchang were also dazed. They had never thought that she would lose so fast. This young man is really good, commented Lu Changming gladly. He had had enough of Yu Qianxuan's festering these days. Now she had no reasons to complain. Su Wenchang also smiled and said, Indeed, it is wonderful for an unevolved person to have such performance. Trying to taking it from other SKTS when Han Sen got rid of Yu Qianxuan, he found the other warframes remained still. It seemed that it was the only warframe that he was supposed to spar with. When Han Sen was confused, a beautiful girl in white uniform came out of the SKTS on the floor. She was breathtaking and even comparable to Ji Yinran, although Ji was sweet, while Yu Qianxuan was valiant. They were both gorgeous in their own style. The real warframes have too much constraint. We should fight again using the holographic simulation machine, Yu said aloud, walking toward Han Sen. She was not convinced and thought her loss must be because she had underestimated her opponent. However, at this time, she had to concede that Han Sen was a great warframe operator and not someone she could beat easily. After all, it was not the battlefield and SKTS was quite expensive, so she wanted to ask him to use the simulation to fight, where they would have less constraints. Han Sen thought she was an opponent arranged by the company and followed her lead to the simulation machine. As he was walking, Han Sen thought, Digong is so thoughtful to have arranged such a beauty to spar with me. I was being so rude to her, and have to act like a gentleman later. Han Sen was, of course, not thinking about losing on purpose. He only intended to wait longer before he won, letting the girl show her strength. Digong had paid for his operation skills, and why would they do that if he could not even beat the girl they had arranged? At the contest among the champions of all shelters, Han Sen had seen Yu Qianxuan, but did not pay attention to her. Since she did not tell Han Sen who she was, he did not recognize her. Han Sen thought of her as a training mate instead of an actress whom he would be working with, or else he would let her win at least once. So, Yu Qianxuan was miserable. Really, really miserable. Having played a dozen times on the simulation machine, Yu had used all she had, trying to win one round. But she really could not. Her opponent was so good that it was almost creepy. With unparalleled techniques, he brought his SKTS to life. Fighting Han Sen reminded Yu Qianxuan of her practice with evolvers. It was like a fight between an adult and a kid. She saw no hope, but her opponents seemed to be deliberately teasing her, allowing her to show what he had and then knocking her out. No matter how pissed Yu Qianxuan was, the gap in their strength was objective. Her anger changed nothing but her mood. Although proud, she was nothing like Zhang Yang. After losing a dozen times, Yu Qianxuan quit the fight and walked out of the simulator. Is he really an unevolved student from a military academy? Yu Qinshuan was very skeptical that Han Sen was simply an evolver. There was no other explanation for him to be able to achieve this level. But when Han Sen came out of the simulator, she saw his face and denied her own guess. Han Sen's look was on the tough side, but his skin became very smooth after he had started practicing Jade Skin. Yu Qinshuan could tell at first sight that Han Sen was not an evolver, but her peer. Judging from how young he looked, she thought he might be even younger than she. "Didn't you know that I am a freshman?" Han Sen wondered why she would even ask. Since she was arranged to practice with him, Digong should have briefed her on his portfolio. Yu Qinshuan cast an odd look at him. He was indeed younger, since she was already in sophomore year. "You were so good at this. How did you practice?" Yu Qinshuan was finally convinced that he was younger, but much better than her, and accepted the fact that Han Sen were to star the commercial. Coming from a military family, she had a straightforward style and respected whoever stronger than herself. "Just lots of time and energy. Haven't you heard that saying?" Han Sen shrugged, feeling slightly proud of himself being praised by such a beauty. "What saying?" Yu Qinshuan was confused. "Success is 99% of talent plus 1% of hard work."
Han Sen låg head.
Yu hesitated and asked him, "You mean that success is 99% of hard work plus 1% of talent, right?" "Sorry, made a mistake there." Han Sen felt a bit embarrassed, thinking that he should go more often to the cultural courses at school so that he could pass the school's semi-annual assessment. Yu Qinshuan looked at Han Sen and suddenly felt he meant what he had said. Without any calluses on his hands, he had skin as smooth as tofu and looked nothing like someone who would work hard. 99% of talent plus 1% of hard work? I will keep that in mind. She cast another glance at him. Although she did not believe in geniuses, Han Sen seemed to be a living example. Lu Changming and Su Wencheng both watched their simulated fights and were surprised by the outcome. It was hard to find any match for Yu Qinshuan among her peers. However, she lost to Han Sen completely, which was absolutely beyond their expectations. It seems that Han Sen was better than we have imagined. Great addition to the special squad. When he becomes an evolver in a couple of years, he will be even more extraordinary, Lu Changming pondered and said.
Su Wencheng not dead.
Qin Xian has great judgment. It was impressive that she was able to pick him out. I have always had faith in the people chosen by the Qins. Lu Changming laughed. Han Sen later learned that Yu was the heroine instead of his training mate. As cheeky as he was, he felt embarrassed. Fortunately, Yu Qinshuan did not know his thoughts. Because she had been convinced by Han Sen's talents, she was very cooperative in the shooting. In fact, even if she was not convinced, as a soldier, she would do her best to follow the order. The only difference was that she would act more naturally this way. During the shooting, Yu Qinshuan would spar with Han Sen and ask him questions whenever she had the opportunity. As she got to know him better, she felt even more intimidated by him. Han Sen's speed was one of the things that made her feel inferior to. She estimated that she would only be able to do that when she maxed out on her sacred Geno points. Later, she treated him as a superior and even an idol to catch up with. If it weren't for his tender skin, she might even treat him as a teacher. However, she rather enjoyed squeezing Han Sen's face for the nice feel, which was actually quite alarming for Han's senator. The effect of jade skin had shown, and he was afraid that someone might be able to tell that he was practicing this hyper-geno art. The whole process of shooting the commercial lasted a total of 13 days, much less than the original plan. Lu Changming and Su Wencheng were more than satisfied with the result. Han Sen too was happy about everything. In addition to working with a beautiful actress, he also ended up having his Silver Killer modified. After the modification, Silver Killer was not only equipped with a weapon system, but also shrunk in size. It was only as big as a 15-inch laptop at this point, and Han Sen could take it with him anywhere. Lu Changming told him that it was the best the current technologies could reach, and a breakthrough in science had to be made before its size could be further reduced. In accordance with their agreement, Han Sen was also given an SKTS, which had a special Digong mark on it, meaning it could enjoy lifelong free maintenance service. Unless this warframe was completely scrapped, anything could be fixed for free in a Digong maintenance station. Of course, if it was located within the range of door-to-door service, that could also be arranged. This type of maintenance service was not commonly seen, and only 2 SKTS had the mark. One belonged to Han Sen and the other to Yu Qianxuan. And Han Sen's silver killer was also stamped with this mark. But when Han Sen looked at his own SKTS, he made a small request to Lu Changming. Because of the special properties of a biological warframe, its color could not be changed. An ordinary SKTS was in silver, and even the owner added a coating on the outside. As long as the warframe was turned to its compressed form, the coating would disappear. So, Han Sen's request was to ask Lu Changming to add some blue patterns on his SKTS. Han Sen had already had his silver killer and was not interested in driving SKTS. With some decoration, it could at least look impressive when he took it out for a spin. Lu Changming agreed, but the color changing was quite difficult and required high-level technology. If the warframe were to be made entirely blue, it would be easier. However, to add blue patterns required the professors in the laboratory to manually change part of the particle structure. When Yu Qianxuan found out about Han Sen's request and saw the holographic design of the blue and silver warframe, she requested the same patterns in red to be put on hers. For this reason, Han Sen stayed at the base for several more days and did not immediately return to school. In more than half a month, Digong had been pushing its campaign, but none of the consumers had seen the look of the super biological warframe. A revolutionary creation, a landmark in the warframe history. All the words Digong was using were viewed as a tail-spinning effort. The competitors also turned the public opinion against Digong and reduced the company into a passive position. Digong did not issue a counterattack, but was quietly waiting for the press conference to be held on September 1st, when they would launch the new super biological warframe. Finally, on September 1st, Digong held the press conference on time. Different from the press conferences before, this one was hosted by Lu Changming personally. Facing the journalists from all the major press in the alliance, he said only one sentence: "Please enjoy epic-making creation presented to you by Digong." After that, a holographic commercial started to play, and all the audience were placed in a campus in the springtime, with breezes blowing gently. Then, they saw a beautiful girl sitting under a tree next to the playground, reading a book, her silky dark hair slightly fluttering. The scene was so breathtaking that the audience were afraid their breath might disturb her. Sunshine, green grass, and the beautiful girl brought them back to their innocent school days. Yu Qianxuan, I knew it would be her, all the journalists were thinking. The recent Digong products were all endorsed by Yu Qianxuan, with great market effect. Therefore, everyone thought Digong would continue to hire her, and it seemed that they were right about it. The scene was followed by a close-up of the book in her hands. In the sun, it felt like the ink could be smelled. However, darkness suddenly fell on the pages, and Yu Qianxuan looked up, frightened. A grotesque, giant warship appeared in the sky and covered the entire school like a dark cloud. A Shura warship. The journalists recognized what it was.
Bang!
An ugly warframe fell to the ground, leaving a deep pit. The warframe stood up, the sword in its hand yearning for blood. Next, Shura warframes flooded out of the monster-like Shura warship. The monsters descended from heaven at the same time, turning a sweet scene into hell. The earth was shaking, the gunfire was roaring, and the students were crying and running around. The girl played by Yu Qianxuan was also desperately running, holding the book in her arms. But how could her legs carry her faster than the Shura warframes? Not to mention the warframes were everywhere. A suffocating despair spread in the hearts of all the audience. Ah! At this critical moment, she tripped over something and fell to the ground, and the book fell in front of her. Struggling to sit up, she reached for the book in panic. When she turned back, she saw the school under attack and the frightening groups of Shura warframes rushing over. Seeing the despair on her face, everyone was heartsick at once, wishing they could save the poor girl. But there were too many Shura warframes, and one of them had even slashed at the girl with a sword.
Bang!
A silver box suddenly hit the bloody sword aside, the letters TS engraved on the box. The silver box finally fell into the hands of a boy in school uniform, who pressed the box and threw it up in the air. Some journalists felt that the boy looked familiar, but none could think of who he was. Everyone's attention was on the silver box. The silver box rustled and turned into silver liquid, winding up the boy's body. In the incredulous look of the audience, the silver liquid turned into the parts of a warframe and armed the boy. Silver Killer. It is Silver Killer. Finally, someone recognized it. And at this moment, SKTS drew a laser sword and a particle gun, moving toward the Shura warframes like a ghost. In the explosion, the sound of metal on metal, the sparks, and the gunfire, Silver Killer was killing away. Facing Shura warframes, Silver Killer was like a proud warrior, declaring to the Shuras that humans were the true owner of the land.
Bang!
The laser sword was broken. The particle gun ran out of energy and was thrown at a Shura warframe. With its ammunition exhausted, Silver Killer was still faced with endless enemies. Everyone was shocked by the incredible visual effect. It was even better than a movie. But the next scene was even more thrilling. From the bombarded school, the students rushed out one after another, each holding a silver box engraved TS. When the box was turned on, all of them were covered in silver warframes, which then launched fierce attacks on the Shura army. Warfare between Shura and human was displayed with passionate background music, motivating each audience to join. Boom! The last frame was focused on the first silver warframe, which blew away a Shura that was trying to attack the girl. The lens was zoomed in on the TS, engraved on the breastplate of the warframe in the end. A line showed up slowly, with a low male voice reading, SKTS by Digong, September 10th, D Garden. After a moment of silence when all the journalists looked at the screen with a blank look, Lu Changming appeared once again on the stage. The journalists were raising questions like crazy. Mr. Lu, is that a real warframe shown in the commercial? Mr. Lu, can a warframe really be compressed into such a small case? Mr. Lu, has any special effect been used in the video? Mr. Lu, is SKTS the same warframe that appeared on the Starry Cup? Mr. Lu, that boy driving SKTS must be that Black Hawk student disqualified by Starry Group, right? Lu Changming lifted his hands to quiet the room down and said quietly, "See you on September 10th?" And then he did not say one extra word before leaving under the escort of security personnel. The whole alliance was in a heated discussion of SKTS, and the commercial had gone viral. *#T. That cannot be real. Must all be special effects. How can it be special effects? It will be sold on the 10th? So Silver Killer was the latest super biological warframe SKTS. No wonder it was not on the market. It had not been launched yet. Starry Group is rubbish to disqualify the student. How is this a warframe for military use? Everything is clear now. Digong deserves the hype. Amazing stuff. If it really works like this, I need one in my life. I had decided to buy 10 when I saw Han Sen at the Starry Cup. Come on. They have said it is a limited edition. It is still in question whether you could snag one, let alone 10. Digong is playing dirty by showing a virtual image as its selling point. A shame on the military business. Exactly, Digong rubbish. Yu Qinshuan is gorgeous. She has changed her style too. Yes, she is so beautiful. I did not expect she could also perform such a role. A true goddess. Han Sen's operation skills are top-notch as ever. Can't wait for September 10th to come. I'm so eager to get my hands on this. On September 10th, Digong will be humiliated by its own lie. How can we produce something like this with our current tech?
Ah, iam Black student.
That is our genius there. The genius is a big shot now, being the new face of Digong. He must have always been their spokesperson. Before the new warframe was rumored to be launched, he had used an SKTS already. SKTS was a total hit. All kinds of experts were analyzing if it was possible to make such a product. Some experts supported Digong, while some snorted, thinking it was merely a stunt. The debate was endless, and before SKTS was officially sold, the result would remain in suspense, which worked in Digong's favor, because either way, SKTS had enjoyed unparalleled popularity. And Digong also released the news about the Digong Warframe match on September 10th, the top 3 of which could each win an SKTS provided by Digong. But the applicants needed to be unevolved to be eligible. Only a few minutes past the announced application time, the application sites on the Skynet were almost out of capacity. The application period was only 2 days, after which a Skynet qualifier would be held, and the top 9 would to join Han Sen as finalists to compete in the Digong Warframe match on September 10th. Many commented that Digong was rather stingy by awarding only the top 3 with SKTS so fussy over a warframe. The most expensive warframe for civil use at the time was the King series of Starry Group, which cost no more than $12 million and could be customized as required. SKTS, however, would not allow customization. Every warframe was the same model. Not even the color could be changed. A warframe like this would be at most $10 to $20 million. Plenty could afford it. But when they saw the pricing, people were all dumbfounded. It was an absurd $76 million, which could buy 6 or 7 King series warframes and probably broke the record of civil warframes. One could even get 2 or 3 military warframes with that price. Also, only 100,000 units would be sold. It sounded like a bit number, but with so many planets in the Alliance and tens of billions of people on each planet, 100,000 was not a lot at all. The competitors attacked Digong ferociously, and the people were also very dissatisfied with the company's strategy. The negative news of Digong was almost overwhelming. Yet Digong had no comment on any of that, waiting for September 10th to come. More and more applied for Digong Warframe match. Fortunately, in the beginning there had not been too many applicants, and there was a limit of 2 days for application, or else the preliminaries could not be finished before the finals at all. Han Hao, come to see this person. This person looks like Han Sen. Han Yume frowned and called Han Hao while watching the Digong Warframe match. They just look alike. There is no way that's him. This is a star and Han Sen does not even deserve to polish his shoes, Han Yume's commented cynically. That's right. How could Han Sen star a Digong commercial? But they do look terribly alike. Han Hao, come here and look at this latest Digong Warframe. 76 million. So expensive that we could probably afford one if we sold everything, Han Yume said admiringly. Han Hao came out of the room, his face dark. Seeing the commercial, he gritted his teeth and said, "That is Han Sr. What? It cannot be. Where did you hear the gossip?" Han Yume and her husband were staring at Han Hao. That is no gossip. Check the list of actors, and you will see. Han Hao was in a bad mood. He could not believe that Han Sen would turn things around so quickly. First, his cousin was admitted to a famous military school, and now he was in the most popular commercial of the entire alliance. Han Yume and her husband were dazed. They watched the star in the commercial that looked like the god of war, unable to believe that was Han Sen. At this time, Han Yume's comlink rang and she pressed answer. Her brother's holographic image popped out and said urgently, "Yume, have you seen the commercial of SKTS?"
Han Sen.
In the old house of the Hans, Luo Sulan was watching the same commercial over and over again, her eyes red and full of tears. Since Han Sen spoke to her and told her about the commercial, Luo Sulan had watched it many times. No matter how many times she watched it, she could not get over her excitement, as if that figure in it was her whole world. On the other hand, Ji Yanran was not happy recently. She only learned from Han Sen about the commercial right before it was publicized. Before that, she was not even aware that Han Sen had gone to shoot a commercial. When the commercial was aired, many students came to ask her, "Yanran, your boyfriend is actually a star. Why didn't you tell us?" "Yanran, is the SKTS really how it looks in the commercial? You must know since Han Sen's your boyfriend. Did he take you on a ride in SKTS? She must have been driving it. Yanran, could you talk it up to the genius and get me an SKTS internally? I am afraid I won't be able to snag one." Ji Yanran was so depressed, since she knew as much as they did. "Asshole, I need to show him who the boss is when he's back." Ji Yanran fiercely ground her teeth. But when she continued to watch the commercial and saw the incredibly pretty Yu Qinshuan, she suddenly sensed crisis. "Han, good job. You are now the spokesperson of Digong," Zhang Danfeng said to Han Sen over the phone excitedly. "Haha, do you want an SKTS?" Han Sen asked with a smile. "Yes, but unfortunately it costs more than 70 million, and even if you could get some discount for me, I still would not be able to afford one." Zhang Danfeng laughed. "Hang on, I could get you one in a few days." Han Sen was someone who remembered others' kindness. Since her family went downhill, Zhang Danfeng and his father helped them a lot. Otherwise, it would have been even harder on Luo Sulan. And a while back, Zhang Danfeng gave him a $2 million broadsword and Han Sen took it. Although he never used it, he remembered. 2 million was not much for Han Sen now, but it was quite a lot for both of them back then. Even if Zhang could not use it himself, he could have used it to exchange for the meat of creatures, which he did not, but gave the weapon to Han Sen. That's not right. Zhang Danfeng was slightly surprised. Although Han Sen had endorsed the warframe, there was no way Digong would give these warframes away. That's nothing. I have two now, and we'll get you one in a few days. We could hang out together in them and get the swag.
Han Sen låg head.
I appreciate it, but I am not interested in driving warframes. If you see some nice broadsword skills, remember to teach me, replied Zhang Danfeng. Okay then, said Han Sen. Han Sen returned to school on September 6th. The remodeling of SKTS took longer than he had thought. He could only stay at school for one day before going back to D Garden for the Digong Warframe match. He could get another SKTS if he was among the top 3. Unfortunately, this one would not come with a free lifetime maintenance service. Ji Yanran was on the BattleNet playing Hand of God when she saw a reminder saying, "My girlfriend is Ji Yanran," was online. You finally showed up. Ji Yanran would like to invite Han Sen to her virtual room, but thought it would make her look bad. Hesitant if she should ignore him, she saw an invite from him. Ji Yanran subconsciously clicked yes, and immediately entered a room Han Sen set up. Sister, playing Hand of God so late at night? Han Sen sent a voice message. Yes, I do not have a commercial to star, or any pretty girl to perform with. What else could I be doing? Ji Yanran said sourly. Han Sen quickly said, do not mention it. I had thought that an actress would be pretty, but was so disappointed when I saw her in person. She does not have 1/10 of your beauty. As he lied away, Han Sen thought to himself, you Qinchuan, thank you for the sacrifice. Ji Yanran was secretly delighted, but pretended to be mad. So that you went for her in the first place? No way. I went for you, Han Sen quickly vowed. How does the commercial have anything to do with me?
Yanran poutet.
You see, I already have a silver killer, but you don't. My family is not rich, so I had to work for Digong to get you a new SKTS. In the future, we could drive matching silver warframes, Han Sen said. Who needs that?
Yanran blushet.
It's just a warframe. I could have bought it myself. I had this one customized. It has blue patterns and is unique in the alliance, which shows our love is unique, Han Sen said. Just a change in the color. If I want it to be done, Lu Changming would not dare to refuse. Ji Yanran still pretended to be mad, while rejoicing at heart. My thought is unique, though. Han Sen was a bit shocked. He knew Ji Yanran was from a prominent family, but her tone suggested that her family was probably more powerful than he had imagined. You would really give it to me? Yours should come with the Digong mark, right? Ji Yanran pondered and asked. Of course. Nothing is more important than my future wife.
Han Sen sighed.
Who is your future wife? A warframe for a wife. You are too clever.
Yanran poutet pretile.
Okay, a lover then, Han Sen said, grinning. I'll give you a chance. If you could show up in front of me when I count to 3, I could totally be your lover, Ji Yanran teased Han Sen. That is not fair. You know I'm not on campus, cried Han Sen. Anyway, I gave you the opportunity. It's not my fault you can't make it. Ji Yanran knew Han Sen would participate in the Digong Warframe match and must not be at school. 1. Ji Yanran counted with delight.
No. Han Sen vimpered.
2. You have to seize the time.
Yanran left.
Can you count down in a few days?
Han Sen begeared.
No, I cannot wait to want to be your mistress. I've showered and been waiting for you to come. How can I stop now? Okay, 2.5. Hurry. Ji Yanran continued to tease him. Sweet sister, wait for me a bit longer. Han Sen continued to plead. I have been so horny. It has to be now. Ji Yanran fell into a strong arm before she could finish the sentence. Surprised, she felt warmth breath next to her ear and heard a familiar voice. Sister, you need to stay true to your words. Now you can be my lover. How can you be here? Ji Yanran was suddenly so shy that even her neck was crimson. She teased him because she was convinced he must be on the way to D Garden, or there already. Han Sen was holding Ji Yanran behind her, looking at her pink ear, and could not help pecking on it. Ji Yanran suddenly felt an electric shock, going limp in Han Sen's arms. Looking at how pretty she was, Han Sen felt an urge and kissed her deeply on her lips. Arms around Han Lan's neck, she kissed him back.
Ah!
While the two were at it, a scream scared them and they quickly separated. Ahem, I am just passing by. Please continue. Chu Lily, who had come to look for her roommate, went away, grinning. You come back here. Ji Yanran was full of shame. She quickly ran over to chase Chu Lily. Han Sen looked at his own right hand with contempt. It was this guy that had touched Ji Yanran's breasts when she was dazed. Han Sen only spent one day at school before he took an interstellar spacecraft to D-Garden. He needed to compete in Digong Warframe match for the endorsement and the prize. There were many applicants for the match in the end, and all the finalists were strong. Some players from military schools even gave up the Starry Cup finals for this. Compared to the King Series Warframes, the mysterious SKTS was clearly more attractive.